Hello, everyone, and welcome to my Inspirational Ingrid channel, and welcome again to my daily news bulletin. As you know, I haven't actually done a daily news bulletin for some time because I've actually been working on my other videos. But saying all of that, I do have some saved up for you. But the one that I have for you today is called Trump Tower in Damascus. Trump Tower in Damascus. And as you know, there's been lots of things going on in the Middle East right now. And so I'm not going to be talking about a lot of the things. I'm actually just concentrating on this Trump Tower in Syria today. So before I start and carry on, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, because this really helps me out. So like I said again, it's my daily news bulletin. And my daily news bulletin series are all about end days, last days, eschatology, Bible prophecy. Yes, it's all about that. So this is what I'm actually talking about today. And I have to say, researching it in myself as a little Bible scholar, I found this one very, very fascinating. And so I want you to look into this yourself and see what you think of it. So many of us who actually call ourselves believers and so forth, we don't actually know about history. We don't actually know about locations. We don't know about things on the map and how it actually affects our lives today. But let me tell you who does know. And this is President Donald J. Trump. The things that he does amazes me and many other people of the nations. So, like I said, let's carry on. So Trump is going to build, or it said he's going to build a Trump Tower in Damascus, which is based in Syria. So this is very, very interesting, to say the least, because as you know, the conflict with Syria over the past couple of years, or, you know, in ancient times has been a lot. And so they have not actually received any investments as such on a really big scale. However, Syria is actually known for their oil and their gas. And so they would actually be quite a productive country. And so this is probably a reason why Trump would want to invest and actually build a Trump Tower based in Damascus. So, like I said, this is all in the Middle East, isn't it? It's all in the Middle East. And you're probably saying, why does he want to do it? Well, like I said, Syria has oil and it has gas. And it's also part of the Middle East. The Middle East. And most of the Middle East countries, as you know, are very wealthy countries. And if you've been watching the news recently, where Trump went to visit Saudi Arabia, and he made 142 billion, sorry, I couldn't speak then, arms deal. And that is one of the biggest arms deals in history. And as you know, Donald J. Trump is a businessman, not just in real estate, but it seems he's very good with business all over the nations and also very good at negotiating peace. So let's carry on with this story. Where are all the Trump towers located, you may ask? Well, he doesn't just have one. We all know the main one that we've probably watched in Home Alone movies, you know, the Trump Tower in New York. We've probably all watched that one. But no, Trump has many others. And so being a girl who loves real estate, I've actually been looking in my Dezeen magazine. Dezeen, that's Dezeen. Because it's a magazine that talks about futuristic buildings and, you know, like real grand design type buildings, whether they're large or whether they're small. Dezeen is a very, very good magazine. I'm not actually kind of, you know, promoting them, but it's a magazine that I subscribe to. And so that's why I'm actually talking about it. And that's where I actually found a lot of my research about the Trump Towers. So let's have a look. Dezeen magazine actually mentioned 10. Okay, there's more, but Dezeen actually mentioned 10. All right. So the ones that they mentioned, like I said again, the Trump Tower in New York City. Okay. So there's different areas in Trump New City, because one is in Fifth Avenue, I think. The other one is Midtown Manhattan, and that's two. And there's another one in New York, which is Trump Soho. So you've got Trump Tower, Trump World Tower, and Trump Soho, all three based in New York City. Then you have the one in Las Vegas. You've also got one in Chicago. You've got another in Panama City. You've got another one in Sunny Isles Beach, Florida. Also one in Toronto, Canada. And you would not believe it, there's one in Istanbul in Turkey. And of course, not forgetting the Trump Tower that is based in Manila in the Philippines, which is yet to be completed. There are, however, other locations of Trump Towers. You have 3 in India. You have one in Mumbai, one in Kolkata, and one in Pune. That's 3. He likes India, obviously. There's another one in Punta del Este in Uruguay. And that's a total of 14 already, Trump Towers. And I've not actually mentioned all the other real estate properties that he probably has, around the world. Because that's who he is, a wealthy businessman. He's not just the president, okay? So Trump has also tried to build other Trump Towers in other major countries and cities. However, these were not fulfilled for whatever reason, whether it was money, raising the finance, whether, the countries wouldn't agree for it to be built, who knows? We don't know what it is. But the places where he did want to build, and it wasn't possible, was Tampa in Florida, Deutschland, Frankfurt in Germany, Moscow in Russia, Atlanta in Georgia, Rio in Brazil, Baku in Azerbaijan, Dubai in the UAE, New Orleans, of course, in the US of A, and Tijuana in Mexico. So these are all the Trump Towers that couldn't be built. And they would have actually been built had Donald Trump been able to do so. Okay? So like I said, these Trump Towers are his real estate signature strip. But I ask you, why Damascus? Why Damascus? And what does Damascus have to do with the Bible? What does Damascus have to do with Bible prophecy? Well, like I said, we spoke about Donald Trump trying to mediate a peace deal with all of the Middle East countries as well as Israel, okay? Joining them all onto the Abrahamic Accords, which I've spoken about before. But again, why Damascus? Syria is seeking sanction relief, which President Donald J. Trump has announced recently that he would release sanctions on Syria and that Syria would once again rise to their greatness and wish them good luck. Now, if you have been watching the news, like I said, Donald Trump recently has been in Saudi Arabia. And not forgetting the private jet plane that he was actually offered. I think it's from Qatar, if I'm not wrong. And I think he gladly accepted it. But like I said, he was hosted in Saudi Arabia by the Saudi Crown Prince. And there was President Donald J. Trump amongst many great Middle Eastern kings, where he spoke about the plans of the United States of America. And he was, in fact, applauded for the news of the release of the sanctions in Syria. I think he actually got a standing ovation on that one, if I'm not wrong. But biblically speaking, Syria was known in the Old Testament as Aram. And this is where the people were called the Arameans. Syria is known to be one of the oldest lands mentioned in the Bible that exists today. So if you think Syria is a country that is nothing, think again. The reason being, like I said, for you Bible scholars and believers out there, Aram was the descendant of Shem. Shem was Noah's son. So if you know about Noah and the ark and the rainbow, all children know about that Bible story. Well, this has to do with Syria, I have you know. This is actually mentioned in Genesis chapter 10 and also 1 Chronicles. Yeah, I think it was 17 if I'm not wrong, or could be from 1. I can't remember now. But like I said, let's go back. In Genesis 28, Aram was the homeland of Rebekah. Rebekah, as you remember and recall, was married to Isaac. Rebekah's brother was called Laban, where Jacob had to work 14 years for Laban's daughters, who were called Leah and Rachel. Now, are you finding this interesting? I knew you would. I knew you would, because I did. So let's have a look in the New Testament. We've looked at Syria in the Old Testament. Let's look at Syria in the New Testament. So here we go. The book of Matthew in the Gospel of Matthew was wrote in Syria. Paul the Apostle journeyed along the road to Damascus, where he had the visitation from Jesus. And his name was changed from Paul, wasn't it? From Saul to Paul. It was changed, wasn't it? It was changed because his name was originally Saul. And then he was called Paul. So this is one that many of the Sunday school children know as well. So this is why I said to you, watching the world news, some of you might even just glimpse things and not really take any notice. But I urge you, take notice. And for those of you that have been watching End Times and Bible prophecy, and you find it really interesting of what is going on in the world news, there has been a huge increase in people buying Bibles. A huge increase, whether they're looking in the Old Testament or the New Testament. People are now interested. People who didn't believe before are now interested. So this is very important. This is all really great news. Wonderful news, I say. And so, Donald J. Trump, President Donald J. Trump, I say, has also proclaimed that he's a man of faith, has he not? Is it a coincidence that he's now building a Trump Tower in Syria? It begs no coincidence that he's building a tower in God's holy land, because that's where it is. This is God's holy land as well. Oh, yes, it is. So I'm going to leave this right here because I think I've spoken enough. All of 13 minutes already. Like I said, I like to give you guys food for thought. I like to give you food for thought on this particular word today. But there's always going to be more. There's always going to be more juicy stories to have a look at. And I'll keep you updated with the other ones that I have. But like I said, at the end of all my videos, make of it what you will. Make of it what you will. Okay, speak to you all again soon. Take care. Bye.